Hello, good evening, friends. We meet again and welcome to our channel, Enabling Supply Chain Management. And tonight I will be the host. I am Efrata from ESCM Indonesia, Enabling Supply Chain Management. And today we will talk about a very interesting topic, which is very famous nowadays during this pandemic situation. The topic is 4PL best practice, yeah. And we will have a guest speaker also tonight, who is the director of LLP Business Development and Consulting from DHL Singapore. And please welcome Vanessa Zhou. Hello, good evening, Vanessa. How are you?
Hi, good evening. I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good also. And you in Singapore, right? Right now?
Yeah, I'm in Singapore.
Okay, yeah, and yeah, because we know that the DHL is a global company from Germany, and you are based in Singapore, right, Vanessa?
Yes, as our regional office is in Singapore for APAC.
Yeah, and thank you for sparing your time to have a conversation with us and then sharing knowledge tonight. And you will talk about the DHL mostly for PL best practice, right?
Yeah, that's right. Thank you. Yes, happy to be here tonight.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Thank you, Vanessa. So, as usually, we will have interaction for engagement with the participant who join us tonight. We will start like a little bit workout, yeah, with the participant. So, we will start with Mentimeter, and our friend who join us tonight in our channel, please prepare your mobile phone or your tablets, iPad, or browser in your computer, and then you can go to menti.com, www.menti.com, and then insert the code 627328, and then please answer one word about 4PL. So when you hear about 4PL, what's come out in your mind? Yeah, please tell us so we can have a live interaction. So once you have words typing in the Menti, so we can see it in here. Yeah, please go to menti.com. Yeah, and then put one word about 4PL. Is it something coming? Yeah, logistics. Yeah, what do you think, Vanessa? Logistics, warehouse.
Yeah, I'm. Well, if I say something now, does it like giving directions to the people who is putting the word? So maybe I probably wait a little bit.
Okay, yeah, it's okay. Yeah,
The one-
someone put efficiency also in here. Yeah, nice. So using a 4PL, so they think about efficiency, yeah, Vanessa. So
Yeah, I think all the keywords here are relevant to 4PL. So 4PL is typically a management of logistics that integrates different parts of logistics. Yeah, for example, freight forwarding, international freight, domestic freight, warehouses, trucking. So all of the management of the logistic activities will be managed through 4PL to drive the efficiency for the supply chain. Yeah.
yeah, that's why someone put expensive there. So do you
Well,
think 4PL is expensive?
I don't think so at all. I think it's opposite of expensive because I think end-to-end supply chain management is it's kind of it's fundamental for any company if you want to have a good business, profitable business,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's the equivalent function or extension of the function of the supply chain management department in any company. So you don't need the function. It's just a matter of doing it in-house or doing it with a 4PL partner. And the benefit of doing with the 4PL partner is that with their expertise, they would look for optimization, cost reduction, and improvement of performance through the supply chain based on their own network. So it's in a way you would have achieved more cost savings and efficiency gains through 4PL partners rather than doing in-house.
Yeah, so there are much more the benefit you can get, yeah. Although of course there's a price you have to pay, but the benefit is more, right? Yeah, I totally
Yeah.
agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. So in my experience of partnering with my customers in 4PLs, we usually say that our 4PL team is self-funded because we typically the savings that generated by the 4PL team from their logistics spend of the customer would be greater than what they spent on paying the 4PL service. So it's a self-funded model actually.
Okay, so that's an interesting model, yeah. Yeah, I hope you can discuss more in the details to share with our friends who may be interesting to use the 4PL business model. Okay,
Yeah, sure.
their integration getting big. If more than one, two people typing the same words, then the word will growing, yeah, bigger than another. So integration maybe like a two or three people already say about this. Uh, yeah, do you agree? Integration is 4PL.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's a very key point for PR business because I think all of you being the supply chain professional, you all have experience about different IT systems and working with different partners, different logistic providers. So none of those systems are talking to each other, and of course none of the carriers are integrated with each other. So the integration with multiple parties that any supply chain that is involved with is the key word here. Yeah, that's.
Oh yeah.
I totally agree with that. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, very good friends. You put very good keywords, integration. B2B, okay, B2B, yeah. Is it only for B2B or can be another form of the relationship, Vanessa?
Um, well, as as a examples from my part of business is mostly B2B because I think it's the nature of a business run by DHL. DHL is majority of B2B logistic company. Maybe that's the reason why. We did had one solution built in Europe for I think Adidas or Nike, one of the fashion industry company for their B2C model and combining with the e-commerce solution. So it's omni-channel solution for B2B and B2C with different channels. That so what in a way that it's possible to run for PL for the B2C business as well, but most commonly B2B because it still needs a certain level of business spend, logistics spend, and the complexity of the supply chain in order to really gain benefit out from 4PL. If it's a straightforward, simple logistic model, then I think the real value of optimization from a 4PL it might not be very suitable.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, mostly it's a B2B, yeah. That's why I don't see any B2C appear here. Okay, yeah, very good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I will show some chat from our friend. Maybe we can say hello as well tonight. From Wahyu Jatmiko. Good evening, Pak Wahyu. And then Krisnov, Fajaris. Okay, good evening, Pak Krisnov and Pak Fajar. Good evening. Yeah, I believe you know Pak Fajar, right, Vanessa?
Hello, Fajar. How are you doing?
Okay. And then there Pak Selamat Leo, yeah, good evening Pak. And then Pak Suryo Prasetya, good evening. Okay, I think we can start now, yeah, Vanessa, because we already spent like 10 minutes in this menti.com. So friends, if you still want to put more words, you are welcome to fill in the menti.com. Yeah, and then Vanessa will start the presentation, and of course, yeah, like usually, if you have any questions, you can just type in the chat box just beside the view in the YouTube channel. You can type the chat your questions. Yeah, we appreciate if you can chat in the English, but if you want to have a question using Indonesian, it's still okay. Yeah? Don't hesitate to ask a question. I can translate it to Vanessa. So we will have a very interactive discussion tonight. Yeah, please welcome to put any questions if you have. Then we will discuss it after the presentation from Vanessa. Okay, I will start the presentation PowerPoint right now. And then, yeah, it's already prepared. And then Vanessa, the time is yours to do the presentation and sharing the knowledge. Thank you. Please to continue.
Okay. Thank you, Denny. Hello, everybody in the chat and in the call and watching this. So welcome to the session, and I hope that I could bring you some knowledge or information that is useful for you today. Just like what Danny mentioned, post any questions. It would be very interesting to have your questions. Then I'm sure I'll give you some answers about it. Let's maybe get started with the presentation I have prepared. So the 4PL business in DHL world, it's called the Lead Logistic Partner Service. So we, in short, it's LLP. I think there was one slide explaining the difference between LLP and 4PL and the 3PL in the later stage. And I think by opening the presentation will be, I think, as a supply chain professional, that we all facing different challenges now, especially now with the COVID. Even before that, we have the dynamic market. There is a risk management requirement on the market, and the reliability, variability, visibilities, and multiple carriers, multiple partners, relationship management with the partners. So all of those challenges are typical challenges that any supply chain would be facing in the market. And that's why the 4PL or LLP layer that to manage different partners within the end-to-end supply chain, it's critical. And when you go to the next slide, you'll be able to see that what we mentioned just now in the introduction, that it's not an expensive model, because LLP is typically focusing on driving the values for the supply chain. So here are the examples that you can see that some of the savings we've achieved for our customers. For example, typical performance improvement or savings generated for the customers will be directly in the direct spend in cash. We typically deliver about 12 to 15% of logistics spend savings with the customer who manages with under LLP business model. And the indirect savings will be the delivery lead time reduction, the data accuracy in the system, because LLP will be acting as one single of truth, connected with different systems and different carriers, different partners, to present a centralized database for the customer to make decisions of their supply chain rapidly. And also that one of the key design function that in LLP will be to do the supply chain network optimization, to determine if you enter a new market, where will be the best location for your warehouse, what will be the route of the freight and trucking arrangement, and also one for the existing network, and it could be optimized with different number of warehouses, or the network optimization. That's another area where the LLP are looking after. Then in the next slide, I think we have our definition on LLP. So in my personal view, I think LLP is a partnership between the logistic provider, in this case DHL, with the customer. So this team of LLP will be acting as extension of a customer supply chain department. and to provide visibility, to optimize the end-to-end supply chain, and to reduce overall cost of the cost to serve in the company. In the graph, I think it explains the different models of 3PL and 4PL. So I can't really see here, but typically what we say about 4PL, I think all of you have rightfully put in the one word in the beginning of the session, is that this is a management layer. It's not operation of the 3PL operation. It manages the truckings, the warehouse, the international freight, but it's not exactly has to be the person or the company who carries out with the operation. So as you see on the right, far right side of the bar, that LLP or 4PL, it's more closer to the company's business strategy. So what we typically in the company, what we would recommend for the company to have would be, of course, every company have their business strategy, and then they will need to cascade that down into the supply chain strategy. And then with the supply chain strategy, that would include things like manufacturing and other elements. And those will also need to be cascaded down into logistics supply chain, logistics strategy, which is to be managed by 4PL, LLP. The difference between 4PL and LLP is there is no difference. Only that because LLP is a service provided by DHL, so there are cases where the customer is already using the 3PL business or services from DHL. For instance, we could provide warehouse operation for the customer, or trucking services, or international freight. In that example, if the customer wants us to provide also 4PL business, and then in this case it's not a pure 4PL partner because the operation is also run by the same company, so it's kind of a hybrid mixed model of a 4PL and 3PL, and so we give them a name as LLP. I think that's the only difference between LLP and 4PL. But then LLP also, we can also provide pure 4PL business without any DHL 3PL services, which is going to be a complete neutral commercial agreement. We have a video here that I think have a very good explanation, illustrates how the LLP or 4PL process works. Maybe we can play the video. Thanks, Denny.
Businesses today face multiple challenges. How to best support customers' multi-channel needs as product life cycles continue to shrink. How to grow new markets while minimizing risk and staying resilient. How to increase business value in the face of increasing market competition. Meeting these challenges often means transforming your supply chain. However, it's difficult to manage change and improve performance if you don't have a clear view of your operations or have the right data or internal resources to help. And delivering this type of change by yourself can be complex, extremely expensive, and resource challenging. In the past, you might have turned to consultants or IT specialists to help, but now, with the global leader in logistics, there's a better way. We can join forces with you to become your lead logistics partner, or LLP. As your partner, we work to transform your supply chain and act as a catalyst for change, leaving you to focus on your core business and strategy. By leveraging our global LLP experience across all industry sectors and geographies, we will help design, manage, operate, continuously improve, and transform your supply chain. As every business is unique, we start by listening to gain a better understanding of your organization's objectives and challenges. We combine these learnings with our expertise and industry know-how to design a flexible supply chain solution that's tailored to your needs. Then, utilizing our expert team, we implement and manage the new approach, working with you to procure the best providers for your business and introduce new processes. To operate the plan on a day-to-day basis, we employ our network of control towers that provides end-to-end visibility and control over your entire supply chain. But the change does not stop there. Our team works tirelessly to enhance performance and drive a culture of continuous improvement. With this fresh input, we design and implement improvements that lead to a transformed supply chain, managed through our proven change management tools to ensure a successful outcome every time. By combining our supply chain expertise and technology with the right operators, we can deliver increased visibility, flexibility, and control across your supply chain, leading to improved performance in every market. With DHL's lead logistics partner, you have a safe pair of hands to drive transformational change and a partner motivated to reduce your costs and unlock new value in your supply chain.
Yeah. Just a simple, well, briefly mentioned about what the DHL is doing. So here is an illustration of our global footprint, where we have our customers in all the regions and multiple countries. I think 70 countries. I can't really tell. So I think from DHL perspective, the power of the LLP model, it also comes with our global footprint. Because of the global setup of the company, we can easily have the coverage of any part of the world where the business might interact with. So that's one of the things that we are proud of. Then the next slide, we have some key numbers of the scope that we manage now. We are managing now more than 3 billion logistics spent under the LLP business model with more than 70 customers. You can see here that it crosses in different logistic types, road and air and ocean and warehouse, etc. It's a very integrated LLP business model. I think that gives a very good overview of how the LLP process model works, and it has been supported by a series of different IT systems, or together we call it IT platform, which I think you will appreciate that any of the functions that it covered within the LLP model wouldn't be having one system to manage all of it. It's simply impossible. Or at the moment, so far, there is no such system exist in the market. I think I should put it this way. So in our experience, that we typically segment the supply chains into the inbound to manufacturing part and manufacturing, finished goods, distribution and fulfillment, and service logistics. So we have 4 typical categories or segments of supply chain that could apply different sets of solutions and specialties into that. So LLP is basically acting as a middle layer between the company's supply chain with all the other 3PL logistics providers. Okay, we can move to the next. Again, I think we could all appreciate that in order to achieve the great benefit of LLP business model, it requires usually the technology, the IT systems, the operational excellence, which is the process, and then talent is the people, and value creation is the experiences, the best practices, and the people all together. So at the bottom line, in order to successfully manage any supply chain, you need people, you need process, you need IT system support, and you need experiences from all of those people to drive the value creation, the cost saving, and optimization. So with those foundations, as we call key enablers, that would be able to drive the strategic value and the financial values for the company to achieve the business strategy that the company set out to do, to have a profitable business and to produce cost savings from logistic aspect. in the next slide, we will be able to see the IT platform. So as you see here, we use Oracle Transport Management as a backbone, which is where we have the central data sits into. But this transport management system is not enough to realize all the different functionalities that we would like to have, and therefore we actually selected or some of the best practices of software in the market that provided into it, connects into the TMS, and to achieve the functionalities that we want. Like we have from the left to right, we have the order portal, which typically does the PO management. PO management. It's a very clever cloud-based portal where the customers or the supplier, whoever wants to place an order or whoever needs to confirm an order, you can input all the information into it, and then that order information will be automatically come back to the transport management system and shared with different carriers. So that solved the problem. Like typically, for example, I've met customers that they only know what the customer order is until they receive the product or into the doorstep. Like I was working with this MRO company for aerospace. So they receive the parts to be repaired for the customers, but they don't have any visibility about the incoming orders. They only realize what are the next order that they need to schedule for the production is the time when they already receive the parts arriving at the manufacturing site, and then they have to do the urgent production or productions planning. So because of the lack of visibility of the incoming orders, all the orders become urgent orders, and then you would imagine that how much of that would disrupt their rest of the supply chain in that company. So I think with the simple tool, that the key to achieve with that is the visibility. That's all we want. We can use that. We can use other tools for that. But then I think the POSO, the order management and order visibility, it's the fundamental element for any supply chain to do the planning and the rest of the work to carry on with it. The second left box, we have intro, transport, and those are typically the carrier integration softwares. They are few platform out in the market where like intro is an ocean freight carrier integration platform. You can have all the different ocean freight carriers update the milestones, receiving orders, etc. And UiPath is a RPA. It's a robotic process automation software we use for the freight bill audit process. Because the TMS is backbone of any database, so we have all the rates of different carriers, all the orders for the shipments in the system, and we know exactly what happened for each of the order. So the LP team will be the best to tell what will be the correct amount for each of the shipment that the customer should be paying for the carriers. And then there is this function called freight bill audit process. And because it's the process is basically the system calculates the correct amount based on all the agreed rate card with the customer, with the carrier, and the carrier would send their invoices into the team, and then the system will do the comparison to make sure and confirm the carrier's invoice are correct. They bill to the right partner, they bill the right product and the right rate, the right amount of money that they need to pay. So the robotic process automation software that we use, we simulate those boxes to automate some of the comparison. They extract the information from the PDF invoices, compare with the system generated invoices information, and provide recommendations if this is correct, this is not. So, that's a functionality that we do. And R360, Resilience 360, this is a risk monitoring software. You receive the live feed from all global different sources. We have over 500 sources, like information like there is a strike in some of the ports, there is earthquake, there is a public holidays happening in some of the countries. Then there is a COVID-19, for example. During this COVID-19 case, that we have utilized that really greatly, relying on it, because every country have their new regulations posting almost every day, and in 36 hours or 24 hours, some of the cities, they will be locked down, and there is no logistic movement in and out, and which services will be categorized as essential. So all of those the regulation and decisions that made in countries would have an impact in the global logistics, and those information of changes would come into the system as alert, and then the planners would be aware of what are the operations that is still viable, which operation that is not, and we need to find alternative solution. So that's our risk monitoring system. And then we have a Power BI for the visibility dashboard, and then My Supply Chain has a DHL portal where the customer would log into that. They don't need to go into all the rest of the system because that's no use for them, right? The customer just need to know what are the key KPIs, what are the performance, and what's the shipments, and those are recited in the My Supply Chain portal. Yeah, let's look at the video. I think the video explains how the TMS connects all different elements of supply chain. Okay, I hope that gives you a good understanding. And here on the slide is some of the examples of our customers, what we have achieved with them together, like the Ford. We've been working together for 20 years, and some other companies with great achievements. And I have a video here with the JCB process. I think some of the challenges that the GCP have mentioned in the video, like the 800 plus number of suppliers, 26 different countries, 79,000 of parts going into the manufacturing plant. I think they present their complexity of the supply chain, and standardized and integrated solution to manage the end-to-end supply chain will be critical for the company. Shall we move to the next session? I think this is the end of the first part of the session today. And with the rest of 20 minutes also, that I would like to talk about how LRP manages the COVID-19 strategies for the supply chains. I think I've taken from some consulting studies. I'm not sure if you have seen this. I think it's probably from McKinsey or one of the big consulting firms that they've summarized the COVID-19 key trends and the impact on the supply chain. The biggest one will be the cost efficiency, given that we have going through this COVID-19 of non-active supply chain for over half a year, and a lot of the business and supply chains get their impact. And with the impact in the business bottom line, top line, that the cost savings will be becoming one of the critical elements that companies are looking at. We're experiencing, especially from the industry like automotive, energy, oil and gas, and some of the heavy equipment machinery companies, that they do take a bigger hit compared to some other rest of the industry. And other trend would be like agile and resilient supply chain. And people will take a fresh air to look into how resilient the supply chain is. The risk management now is another hot topic for the supply chains. I think in the past that we've talked about risk management, but there is always a trade-off between risk management and cost, overall cost. So usually that's more risk resilient supply chain will requires a little bit less cost efficiency. But given the biggest impact that we are facing now with COVID-19, I think the balance of if you go for cost saving or if you go for agile, that will need to be reevaluated. So we will be able to take a step back from going to the extreme cost saving supply chain rather than making it resilient. And digitalization has been trending for the past few years, we have all realized that the world is moving into digitalized space. But with COVID-19, with everybody working from home, that has becoming an extra push into this drive for the supply chain to really digitalize itself. And visibility that have been proven during the COVID-19 situation is the key for any decision making. Without the visibility of what is happening in the market, in the supply chain, and there is harder or greater challenges in managing our supply chain during the crisis period. And another trend for the pandemic response is all to the crisis management. And we actually manage the COVID-19 testing kit supply chain for Singapore government in Singapore. So we have luckily, we have the first-hand experience to say that how the pandemic supply chain looked like. We were involved in the global competition of multiple countries bidding on the essential COVID testing kits from a few suppliers. So basically, that countries are just placing orders regardless of what's the demand, because if you don't do that, then the stock will be gone by the next day. That's just the fact that happened during the COVID-19 situation. I'll be happy to share more if you're interested on that. And the next trend is the merger and acquisition. With some of the companies facing challenges in cash flow, there will be more possibility of merger and acquisition coming out from this crisis. And last but not least, e-commerce. We all experienced the e-commerce growing during the period. Like myself, for instance, I buy everything online now. I'm not going even to the supermarket because I have been locked down for half a year. So all of the trends that have an impact in how the supply chain will be managed after we get out from COVID-19. So in our view, that the supply chain professionals need to look at a COVID-19 recovery strategy. And in the short term, it will be crisis management. Because no need for saying, right? We all understand that during the past half a year that we all try to firefight and make sure that the product comes in and goes out with feasible ways, because there are times that the logistics has been hot. There is not much activities was happening, and there are times that the demand drastically changed ups and downs, and that all comes into the crisis management category. How do we deploy resources to support the increase in some areas of demand, and how do we manage the redundant, or in a better words, extra resources that we have to put it in a more value creating areas of the supply chain. And if we look at the medium and long term of the recovery strategy, that would come back to, again, what the key value was, that to build the end-to-end supply chain management, to build end-to-end visibility, to continue drive for cost savings across the supply chain, and build a resilient and supply chain with better risk management. I have an example from how we have managed for our big customer during the COVID-19 time in the following slides. Oh, I was jumping. Okay, so I think based on some of the videos and the presentation that you've seen so far, that's the key functionalities that the LRP does is the control towers manage different parts of the supply chain, integrate different parts of the supply chain, and manage different partners and communicate with all parties to make sure the visibility is there, communication is done 100%, and decisions could be made quickly based on the numbers and data and the facts that we have about the supply chain. And that gives the LRP in the better position to respond into the COVID recovery being short-term with managing crisis, or the long-term to improve the resilience of the end-to-end supply chain. Next slide would be the case study that I was mentioning. So this is a global customer that we have in the technology industry. And what we do, we manage the global spare parts supply chain. So as you see on the map, it's a good coverage. And in the next slide, we'll be showing that some of the functionalities that we do here. So their challenge was basically that they had way too many 3PLs. They have the different 3PL partners in every single country that they have business with. And if you remember the map, that's quite a lot number of countries. And because it's a spare part, spare part for the products like servers and everything, the service requirement is extremely high. Usually the spare part needs to be delivered to the site within 2 hours maximum. So they really need fast response supply chain and a high performance service level performance carriers to help them to deliver, to fulfill the customer orders when things are broken down, when there is a need of repair and swap. So the challenges were typically the challenges for a global company without the end-to-end management, that there are too many partners to be managed across the supply chain, and the high demand in service levels, which requires a high level of planning, forecasting, and coordination, and which needs a high level of visibility in the network of where the parts are and where the demand are, and how do we best supply the parts to the nearest location of the demand point. And also it requires the highest level of data accuracy to know exactly what are the SKUs in which location at the exact time. So we came in and provided the solution to tackle with all the challenges that they were facing. And the result being that we've been working with them for over 5 years now, and we have improved the service level from 70% of meeting the target to above 90%. And next slide will be what we did during COVID. So in APAC, there are 15 countries in APAC scope and 121 sites. With some sites here means the warehouse where they have stock keeping locations. Then when the COVID first hit in APAC, it started out from China and then slowly to the rest of the countries in APAC. The countries started lockdown one by one. And I remember that at the time when Singapore locked down and they closed border with Malaysia, and all the warehouse workers are actually Malaysian traveling to Singapore. So all the warehouses were having a crisis of not having enough manpower to continue operating. And that's just one example of the crisis. And also another example in India. I think for over 1 month and a half, there are no warehouse that are allowed to operate in India. So we need to find a solution in how we can resume the operation, because the machines are still working, especially now that everybody working from home. There are even more requirements for the machines to be functioning, no breakdown, and fast repaired if there is any situation. So what the LRP team did is that they formed a COVID-19 work task force. Then they lay out a work plan by country. Each country have their representatives to be part of the committee, the task force, and then they monitors the situation within the operations. And in the next slide, you will be able to say that they form the business community in different layers. So for example, on the top they produce the global overview report, and there are weekly business continuity and status update to the regional customer stakeholders. And at the country level, the country LP provide daily updates in areas of operations where the warehouse and domestic and transport are. So we have a global, regional, country, at all levels, full coverage of activities carried out by the COVID-19 task force. And the next two slides actually would be some examples of the dashboard that the team created for COVID-19. Like in here, you will see a global view of the warehouse status, how many warehouses that are still operating, how many warehouses are not operating due to different reasons in the countries, and which are forecasted to be operating in the next week, and how many of them are halfly operating with a reduced volume. So that's one of the examples of the dashboard. And then the next one is a overview of the number of warehouses that is forecasted to resume operation in the next week and next month. And we have been getting very good feedbacks, and because of what the team have done for this customer, that they are still being able to operate through difficult times. Another example happened was that there was a shipment coming from Netherlands to China. They have already shipped out from Amsterdam port to Shanghai, but then at the time China, when the shipment is in the sea, China have locked down the port operation, so the parts cannot go to anywhere after it arrived in Shanghai. But then the site who ordered the port is actually in north part of China, so they have to find a way to move the part from Shanghai to Tianjin, the north part of China, without any logistic operating within the country. So the team really getting creative and thinking about different way to route if there is a by sea, by barge, and by trucking. So finally, they have requested before they ship out the part in Amsterdam, that they ship to a different port instead of a region port. I think roughly that was the story. A lot of communications go into that. Okay. I think I still have two slides. Yeah, right. This one is another example that I mentioned briefly earlier, that it's a supply chain that we managed for Singapore government, not government, roughly. So it's a Singapore government task force to bring in COVID-19 machines and equipment and test kits and masks and all the consumable products that is needed to fight the COVID. Then the company, this team started working on it, and they started with 5 suppliers, because at the time I think you just buy from whenever the supply is available and find a way to ship it into the country. But then when they started managing the supply chain, they realized that they need some help from professionals, because they can't manage it, because depends on where the products are coming from. All these are medical, pharma grade products. First challenge was the storage. So we are managing the storage, but then the storage challenge are like the product consists of -20 degree frozen, -70 degree extreme frozen, and to ambience and also to air conditioned 2 to 15 degree, all different requirements with a mix of products. And also they have explosives products. Really, I think the testing kit is quite a complicated thing. That's from my experience with this company. So they have very complex requirements for the storage, and hence that those requirements need to be also fulfilled and carried out during the international shipments and trucking when they move the product from the suppliers into Singapore. And if any of the requirements are not met, and then those testing kits will not be working properly, as you would imagine, that would result in false diagnosis and all the bad consequences that countries do not want to have. So it really requires careful management about the supply chain end to end, and also the documentations and custom clearances are another challenge that they are facing, given the nature of the product. So they engaged us in managing them end to end. So we we help them to coordinate with all the suppliers to make sure that each product we understand what's the requirements in logistic handling from the suppliers, and make sure that along the way of the supply chain when it moves into the country, those requirements are met, and schedule with the suppliers to schedule the deliveries and for each of the PO, how many deliveries that we need to schedule, how do we break down the volume, and when should they ship it out. And then we also arrange with the courier services or air freight services to make sure that the air transport is available for the products to come in on time, and also that based on the testing plans that the Singapore government is carrying out in the country, that we do the demand supply balancing and check with all the available inventory and incoming inventories based on and how much can we meet the planned testing requirements in the future in the next month. In the next slide, that we have built up a very quick, simple visibility portal. It's Power BI based. Most of the data input into this is actually manual with Excel because we didn't have time to really build a sophisticated system into it. But then, except the TMS, which is linked to the domestic delivery. Just to quickly capture all the key information about the POs by the suppliers, how much the PO have fulfilled, and what's the monetary value that the PO represents, and the logistics spend is, and the track and trace of the order status of where they are, and track and trace of the inventory status where they are, because we now have 3 different inventory locations in the country, and to connect the POs to the shipments, to the inventory, and to the deliveries, final deliveries, to present a true end-to-end visibility with a very simple solution. So this is a Excel plus Power BI solution. Nothing complicated about it, but it's fast deployed, which was the requirement at this difficult time. I think with this, that concludes my session of sharing, and let's look at the questions, shall we? If any.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Vanessa, for the brief presentation, and then that is very interesting because if I heard from you, if you are using the LLP from DHL, it means we just know everything is done and everything is already complete, right? Including the infrastructure, including the software. So the LLP basically provide more benefit, yeah, to the company who using the LLP business from you.
Yeah, I think if you remember the IT platform page that I showed, so far that I haven't seen one software in the market that will be able to fulfill all the requirements that managing an end-to-end supply chain needs. It has to be a few different softwares linked together to be managed. And DHL strategy is that we're not building any softwares. We're not using one software. We are looking out in the market and see where and who has the best software that meets the requirement. Then we integrate into our central TMS. So that's the strategy that we do.
Yeah. Okay, we have some questions in here. Good evening, Pak Suryo, and thank you for the questions. This is a question for Vanessa from Pak Suryo. Could you explain more about operational risk management in Resilient 360?
Yeah. Well, Resilient 360, it's another topic for a lot of things that we can share. But okay, briefly, it's a portal that collects the live feed from 500 more plus sources, reports incidents happened in your network. So basically what we do is that when we have a customer using the software, we would map the knots the locations and sites of the customer into the system, including all the ports, the warehouse locations, production sites, and their supplier locations as well. So all of those locations related to the supply chain of the customer will be in the system. And if there is anything happens within a certain radius of choice, so there are parameters to be set. It's maybe within the city or within 500 kilometers, things like that. So within the range that could have impact to those locations of the supply chain would receive a automatic alerts every day or live whenever there is something happens. Things that could have, and then for each of the alerts that the system will rate in a way that how much is the impact. Like we give a rating if it's a strike, like in the next city that would have maybe a low rating, but if it's strike in the port itself, it would just stop all the operation. It will have a high rating of impact. So all the high rating of impact will be shared with the LP team, and the LP team will need to take actions in solving the problem. If this port is not going to be able to have the shipments out, then we might need to alternatively truck the products into a different port and ship out from there. So that's the things that the LP team need to look at based on the risk alert from Resilient 360. And also the system will provide ETAs for the shipments, the predictive ETAs based on the different alerts that they collect. If the vessel shipping from Europe into Asia, and then the estimated arrival ETA would be maybe in 7 days, but however there is something happens, if there is any risk, if there is tsunami, if there is a tornado, if there is a weather condition that potentially impact on that vessel, and the predicted ETA will be reflected and send an alert to us saying this shipment will potentially be delayed. So that kind of things. I hope that answers you.
Yes, yeah, it's a good visibility, yeah, for the LP teams and both of the customer as well. Yeah, we hope it can answer Pak Suryo questions. And then this is a questions from Fajaris to Vanessa. A quick questions. Yes, Pak. Question is quick, but the answer might be not quick, yeah, Pak. So, friends, if you have any questions, just typing in the chat box. This is a very quick way to communicate with us, yeah, with this channel. The question for Vanessa is, how does DHL manage transformation and change management in particular project with the client?
Right, very good question. So that I think change management, in my view, that comes into two different phases. The first phase is when we start the engagement or partnership with the customer as an LLP. So that's typically a project management plus change management, because typically that when a company engage LLP service, they will need to have a lot of change management within the company, because some of the functionalities that the LLP does is actually exist in the company already. So it would be potentially a transfer from the customer's organization into the LP organization, and also that the functionalities that the LP team would do, and then it would free up the time of the customer's organization. They might be able to redeploy them to do something else. So there needs to be very clear service level agreement and the roles and responsibility agreement between the LP team and the customer's organization to list down exactly who does what, what's the roles and responsibilities for each of the team member from the customer and for LP side. So that's part of the project management as well as the change management, because we need to really manage the transition of the company and the people in the company to adopt the LP service and make use of it, so that they would be able to drive the max of the value out from that. So I think that's the first phase of the change management. And the second phase of change management, I think that Fajar may be referring to, is how do you manage the continuous improvement and continuous transformation of the customer's supply chain. And in that, we have a very defined value creation process that the team follows. So usually that there would be based on the data analysis that we have in the RP team in the whole supply chain. And then we will have apply some analysis and some insights to identify where could potentially be the area that we could deliver some cost savings, and then derive into a list of initiatives that the team can implement for the customer to improve the different area of the supply chains. It's kind of like a consulting phase. So based on DHL's expertise, the team will analyze and create ideas about what are the initiatives that can apply to the customer. And those initiatives will be reviewed together with the customer, and to say if the customer think that is feasible to implement, or if they have the interest to implement, or they think that the benefit is reasonable and the benefit is good enough for them to implement. And then we will create the project charter. The project charter will be reviewed and agreed by both DHL and the customer team. And then once that is agreed and validated, then we will need to create a project team from both RP team and the customers team, then to detail the charter one into a charter two. That's our terminology, basically the brief project charter versus the detailed project charter, and to list it down the timeline of what are the things need to be done to create value for the customer, and who are the people that need to involve for this initiative specifically, and that we also need to be signed off and validated by both customer and DHL. And then we will have a project manager to make sure that the initiatives are implemented. And the motivation factor is also that in a lot of customers that we have gain share commercial models. So what if we produce the product, the cost savings greater than certain threshold that we set, and usually the savings will be shared with DHL for a certain percentage. So that's also one of the KPIs that the team is monitoring on the daily, weekly basis. And at the end of the year, we need to review if everything have achieved the targets as part of the relationship and the performance review with the customer. So I think all of that defined process help in the continuous transformation and change management with the customer.
Wow, this a very complete answer, yeah. So there are a lot of experience, also, of course, yeah. DHL already doing in the business, and this is not an experiment, yeah. This is an experience. So don't worry for the change management. Based on the answer from Vanessa, everything already handled, and there are very structured way to do the change management. And this is a second question from Fajaris to Vanessa. I was being a partner with DHL Logistic 4 years ago. Challenges for most 4PL in Indonesia is about truck availability in peak season such as Lebaran, as DHL don't have own truck. What do you think? So this is a common problem maybe, yeah, Vanessa. So because in the peak season the truck is disappear. So what do you think? Yeah, the availability of the truck.
Yeah, I think that is truly a challenge. As until today, that is still a challenge. So we recently have a LLP business in Indonesia with the PC Cousins. I don't know if you know about that company. It's one of our new customer. And then what the team did was that because Indonesia domestic trucking, Indonesia supply chain Indonesia DHL supply chain company, one of the DHL division company basically, who does all the trucking and manages the truckings in Indonesia. They already have customers like P&G, Unilever, and all the consumer products. And their solution for the new customer on board was that we can co-share the load of the trucks. because typically with PNG Unilever, or I'm kind of sharing business secrets now, but don't quote me on that. We usually engage with the trucking companies in different ways. Sometimes we do a long-term contract, or we do a fixed trucks, or we do a shared truck. So there are different commercial ways that we manage the trucking company. With one customer, that we might not be able to require for dedicated trucks all the time because the rates are too high. But as DHL, we're able to consolidate loads from different customers if we see the routes are fit. And then we can engage with dedicated trucks to make sure that we get the truck available. And then we pull the loads from different customers into the trucks. So that's an advantage of having multiple customers compared to if you're just one customer and manage it by yourself. But then it's still a challenge. I agree.
Yes. Yeah, thank you for the answer, Vanessa. And this is a new question from Pak Slamet Leo. In 4PL, the time sensitivity is very important. How DHL control the uncertainty clearance time to achieve accurate ETA, estimate time arrival?
Yeah, that's also a very good question. Again, I think it comes back to the experience. Because of the global coverage that DHL has, we basically deal with custom in almost all the countries. So we know the process and how long it takes from the practical practice of that specific country. And then we would always have a better estimate compared to someone who doesn't have done the business with. Yeah. But that's another real challenge, like countries in Indonesia. It's often uncertain, yeah.
Yeah, although you already mentioned about the like a TMS or like a software, yeah, for the feasibility of the estimate time arrival, but of course, still a challenge to make sure the ETA is on time, on the right track. Okay.
Another point for the customer clearance is the key is documentation. So the team, LLP team, would make sure each of the transaction, each of the shipment have the full and complete and correct documentation, because every single mistake from any of one of the documents would delay the process by days. That's what we don't want. So I think the preactive control of the accuracy of documentation is the key here.
Yeah, sometimes the one document is not complete, then it will make the whole process become delay.
Yeah.
Okay. We hope Pak Slamet Leo the question already answered by Vanessa, and this is a new questions from Pak Bangsawan. Thank you for the questions. In 4PL system, customers often have many requirements and they also need many logistics schemes for further selections in page 1. And then in the page 2, because of the burden caused by the corresponding operating conditions, it is important for the solutions to obtain a modest computation. How about your opinion about this case? Thank you. This is from Pak Bangsawan. Any comments regarding this, Vanessa?
I'm not sure if I fully understood the question. So you are saying that is this the question about the standard service offering compared to customization of specific customer requirements?
Yeah, I think the question is about your opinion regarding the modest computation. Yeah, I mean the solution maybe. The solution, because you mentioned about the modest computer software, something like that.
Yeah. So we acknowledge that every customer have different requirements, and so the LLP service is actually a very flexible service. So we have the key elements and the key functionalities that offers. But for example, the PO management and with the order portal, which one of the system that I explained, that's completely optional. That if the order management is not critical for certain companies, and then we don't even include that into the solution. yeah, so it's very customizable, not very customizable to a certain extent to cater the requirements. And usually the process is that we would produce a solution based on our understanding with the customer to exactly address the requirements and then align with the customer if this is what they want, if they want to add more or less or reduce, and then we look at the price and then into agreement of exactly what we both understand the same thing. So it's not like a system that is already there and everybody gets into the system get exactly the same thing. It's not exactly like that. Um, hope that answers the question.
Yeah, because you already mentioned also the system is a lot of variety, yeah, like from the
Yeah,
TMS system, and then you also mentioned about the Excel based, which is Power BI, right? So this is not mandatory, yeah, but based on the customer also, yeah. And this
yeah.
is from Pak Fajaris. Many thanks, Vanessa, for a clear answer. Yeah, I think.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think that's all, yeah, from our friend Vanessa for tonight, and we already like 20 minutes, more than 1 hour. Yeah, okay. Maybe the last words from you. I mean, for before we close this session, Vanessa, any comments?
Yeah, sure. Well, very happy to be here to share. I hope that anything I've mentioned or shared today that will be of any use to you. And if you have any further questions in the field, just feel free to reach out to me. I think I'm in the WhatsApp chat. Um, yeah, happy to share.
Yeah, and our friend, if you have any question, further questions, you can join our study group in the WhatsApp group. Vanessa is there, and then will become the source of knowledge regarding the 4PL best practice. So if you have any question, feel free, yeah, to ask directly to Vanessa in our study group WhatsApp. Thank you again, Vanessa, for joining the session tonight and then sharing your knowledge about the 4PL best practice to us. And this is very, very helpful for us. Thank you again, Vanessa, and have a good night.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, goodbye. Okay, our friend enabling supply chain management. Thank you for joining our uh, session tonight, and that's all from Vanessa explaining about a very interesting topic about 4PL best practice, especially in DHL. So if you want to know more about discussion regarding the supply chain management and another topic, we will have a fresh topic every week. So make sure you subscribe our channel and then join our WhatsApp study group. So stay healthy and then have a good evening for you and have a good weekend. Goodbye.